We're all human and we make mistakes. And sometimes that happens to be on your tax return. Have you ever missed claiming a credit or a deduction that you found out about later? Or totally forgot to report some income items, gave an incorrect filing status, or simply realized some other mistake? Well, that's okay. You can amend your tax return and it can be pretty easy, and it won't risk additional IRS audit interest when done correctly. So here are top 6 things you need to know about amending tax returns. Item 1. The IRS won't just do it for you. They are not obligated to correct your mistakes, and they can actually take up to 3 years to notify you of an error that requires you to pay more taxes. And that increases any penalty or interest you may owe. But be clear, the IRS usually doesn't look at your tax return to add benefits to it. A benefit left off stays left off forever. So that's up to you. Item 2. The IRS allows you to file an amended return for all open years. An open year usually includes the 3 years after the due date of the tax return or the filing date. It can also include 2 years after the taxes are actually paid in full, whichever is later. And sometimes that's a little bit longer. But most of the time, think 3 years from when you filed your tax return. Item 3. In order to file an amended tax return, you'll need to use the current Form 1040X, which for 2019 tax returns and later can be done electronically. On this form, you'll need to enter the amount from the original return, or as most recently adjusted by the IRS, enter the new and correct amount, show the difference between the two amounts, and explain each change by line. This may seem complicated, and it can be, but like fixing any mistake, at work or at home, just be careful. Item 4. When you send your amended tax return to the IRS, you'll also need to include copies of all other schedules or new forms that have changes, and any forms created, and any W-2s or 1099s received after the original tax return was filed. Do not include a new Form 1040 with the tax return. That'll just confuse the IRS. And if a form was changed between the original or amended returns, write amended at the top of the changed form. And make sure to include any new W-2s or new 1099s reported on the amended return. But do not include W-2s or 1099s that you sent in originally with the prior return. Some folks do it different ways, but I find this way works the best. Item 5. Generally, if you amend your federal tax return, you're going to need to amend your state tax return too. And if you forget this step, it could cause a lot of headaches down the line. And more so if the state lets you know they know after the fact. And nobody needs more problems. So when amending, do both the federal and state return if you have a state return filing requirement. And finally, item 6. It can take up to 16 weeks or 4 months for the IRS to process an amended return. So don't get in a hurry. Sometimes quicker, sometimes a bit longer, as the IRS is way behind as we record this. But generally several months. And states can take just as long. If you decide you want to amend your tax return, it's important it's done right. And even though I've hit on the high points and explained it very clearly, if I do say so myself, it's still more trouble than you might think. In fact, it could even trigger an audit if you donk it up. And if you're amending your return to get more money back, no one wants an IRS audit in response. So it's a good idea to schedule an appointment with a tax pro today at jacksonhewitt.com. And don't forget, like this video and subscribe to our channel for even more tax tips.